Tonight on Business Live, Ghana Upstream Petroleum Chamber hints of plans to further engage government on the implementation of 3 key tax measures. But will this yield any results? We will engage the Chief Executive of the Chamber. Also, National Pensions Regulatory Authority allays fears of impact of domestic debt exchange program on pension funds, indicating it is working to avert any agitation from fund managers and beneficiaries. Plus, banks set to review investment and lending decisions in coming months due to the impact of debt exchange program. We will hear from the Chief Executive of the Ghana Association of Banks, John Iwa.
Not going to relax lending covenants. No. We have shareholders' interest to protect, depositors' funds to protect, and also to demonstrate to our stakeholders, correspondent banks, the regulators, that of course we will operate, we will be lending, but we'll be careful in lending.
We've got details of these and many others lined up for you. Please stay. Those were your latest commodities updates. I am Pious Kojo Baka. Straight to our very first story. The Ghana Upstream Petroleum Chamber has indicated its intention to further engage government on the implementation of the 3 tax measures. Now, this was after the Ghana Revenue Authority announced that it will start implementing these taxes, including the Growth and Sustainability Levy, which will affect some of these firms that have stability agreements with government. Let's get on to Zoom and speak to the Chief Executive of the Ghana Upstream Petroleum Chamber, David Ampofo, for his perspective on this. David, grateful you could join me on Business Live. Now, how is this engagement with the government going with respect to the Growth and Sustainability Levy?
Hi, good evening. Well, actually, as you know, the levy has been passed. It has come into force. In fact, strictly speaking, is it the 1st of May? So, hello?
David, I can hear you. Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, I lost you briefly. Yes, I mean, so the engagement really is a question of just the bigger picture of taxation and its impact going forward. You know that with the Growth and Sustainability Levy, there are several of the companies in the upstream sector that have stabilization provisions that they will certainly fall on, which means that they will raise the issues about what the legality, they're really having to deal with it when, you know, strictly speaking, you are really not expecting it at this point. But you also have several of the companies who don't have those clauses who, you know, will feel that pressure. I mean, all I can say to you, to be more clear to you really, is that, I mean, taxation is clearly something that government requires to do when it wants to raise its revenue. What the industries ask for has been for engagement as much as possible prior to the introduction of new taxes, because it gives the government also a chance to understand the reality facing the sector and help inform its decision. But as I'm saying, it's at the moment, it comes into force next week. It's something that's been passed by the Parliament. So, I mean, it's not really even a question of government. I mean, the Parliament, the Sovereign Parliament of Ghana has made that decision. And it is as it is.
But are you hopeful that there will be any progress made on these discussions? Because some will say that has been passed into law.
Yeah, I mean, no, we continue to engage. I think it's important because, taxation, I mean, this is not the if you like to say, the first or the last, let me put it that way. So the engagement must continue because I think it's extremely important that, the challenges that it brings to business are clearly understood. So that engagement will go on. There are several, as you know, business organizations, the Private Enterprise Fund, I think AGI, the Chamber of Mines. I mean, the upstream petroleum sector is not the only sector that had, issues with it. So, I mean, it's important that as stakeholders, we continue to engage. I mean, we have had engagement with GRA recently, and we will continue to do that. We want to engage on a regular basis, and so that we can sort of influence or shape the thinking about some of these things before they sort of come into force.
David, tell me, how bad will your members be affected if they are not exempted from this tax, despite the fact that some of your members have a stability agreement with the state?
Look, you see, I think it's very important to understand that, the challenge is what we call creeping taxation. And I say creeping taxation, it means, inching upwards, something new today, something new tomorrow. I think it's very important to understand that. I mean, it's okay to talk about it at the moment as though it was just one one-off event. But then you know better than I do that there are several of these taxes and levies that have been growing, and that really put pressure on industry. Because, you sort of set out with a very clear understanding of what the position is, and find out as you go on that it is shifting. And I say that, very cautiously. And it's extremely important that is not the case. So we have to. We really don't have a choice. And the Ministry of Finance, for example, is a big stakeholder that we as an industry will be engaging. After all, the tax authority really is an implementing agency, and so to see them say they'll begin to implement it starting next week is not entirely surprising. I mean, it is a levy that has come into force, and so they proceed to do what they must do. But it is the policy makers that really we need to engage so that these things, can be put into a better perspective.
And how is the industry doing despite the current challenges?
Yes. The upstream industry is at the, look, apart from, and you have to give them a lot of credit for that, Tullow has been very busy of late with the multi-well drilling program and so on. But Tullow and Cosmos dates back from 2010. As I keep saying, over the last 6 years or so, there's been no new petroleum agreement. You see, you must grow the reserves. So if you're not growing the reserves and you rely on what you found a while ago, over time it declines. And that's what's happening. If you look at production over the last, since 2019, you can see a very clear decline. I think the PIAC report was very clear about it last week. I mean, one of the things that is interesting that you have to keep in mind is that I think that in last year, I'd say $1.45 billion from oil in revenue. And the newspapers, we will all report it as the highest, amount. But you have to understand what else it could have been if production had not been declining. Okay, this is really a function of the price. So if you've got if the price has recovered and so with a minimum amount of production, you make a certain amount of money that comparatively is high. What you really should ask yourself is how much opportunity is lost in a good price environment if production was on the increase. Production is declining. That is just a simple fact. Okay, oil and gas production is declining. There is little or no investment apart from the existing players. And I mentioned that right now about Tullow and Cosmos. We need new investment in the sector to expand it and develop it and grow the reserves. A lot has to be done, including to speed up from discovery to production. I mean, there's a whole process where you discover And then when you discover it commercial quantity, you must now appraise to see whether it's in commercial quantities. Then you must now inform government and do a plan of development. Then you must go from the plan of development actually producing. A lot of times, a lot of the income, the good money for businesses here and for our members, our Ghanaian service companies, is when the plan of development is underway and they are putting in place infrastructure to enable production to begin. That's when you have a lot of work taking place.
All right. Thank you.
So that's important for industry.
Thank you very much, David Ampofo, for your time here on Business Live. He is the Chief Executive of the Ghana Upstream Petroleum Chamber, speaking to us there. Now, Council Member of the Food and Beverages Association, John Awuni, has said the newly imposed taxes by government will not work in the interest of the private sector. According to him, demands in the market are already low, while the cost of production is excessively high. Addressing the business, adding that businesses will have to pass down the cost of these new taxes to consumers. He spoke earlier on the marketplace.
We are aware, the government is aware about the effect of whatever they are doing, but we want to give them a synopsis or a brief on the effect of their policy from 2017 to today on pricing in the country, where most goods like a bag of rice was 150 cedis. Today we are dealing with 600 cedis. Sugar was about same thing. Today we are dealing with about 585 cedis per bag. You can talk about anything. Bread was like 5 cedis. Today we are dealing with bread of 20 cedis. Eggs, a crate of eggs was like 15 cedis. We are dealing with about 50 cedis per egg. A carton of chicken was like 40 cedis. Today we are dealing with about 350 cedis. We want to come up with a paper, and we are putting that together. In the next couple of days, we intend to engage government to look at this. Because we are supposed to be partners in development, and you can't come out with these things, and we are crying, and nobody, it appears to be like it's a state capture. We have captured the state, we will do whatever we want. You can say what you want to do, but we will also do what we want to do. And you are in affairs of the state, in the interest of the private sector, in the interest of individuals, in the interest of households. You cannot do things say that you want to please yourself at the detriment of the people. If you want to survive a revived economy, how have you explained to us where we are, aside the blame of Ukraine and then whatever not? Are we the only people who Ukraine and then whatever COVID has affected will reflect immediately as we engage the government? Cost will reflect immediately because nobody is going to bear that cost. And what I'm saying is it's going to have a cascading effect. It's going to have complete multiplier effect because as the cost already, demand is very low in the market. Now, no business owner is capable of eroding his capital by bearing these taxes. So the growth and sustainability tax that players in industry will pay 2.5%, and it's supposed to be passed to the consumer. Let the consumer bring the money, and then we will give it to the government.
The National Pensions Regulatory Authority has allayed fears of any impact of the government's domestic debt exchange program on pension funds. According to the Assistant Manager of Standards and Compliance at the NPRA, Emmanuel Abrokwa, the authority is currently intervening for members so that there will not be the need for them to agitate or picket in an event of any unforeseen circumstances of a new debt exchange program.
For the past 2 hours, we had been in a meeting with WAMI and WAMA. It looks a little confusing. West African Monetary Institute and then West African Monetary Agency. Now, the meeting is looking at the impact of whatever you and I are experiencing, debt exchange and its issues on the pensions fund. And one thing that became critical is that when individual bondholders are suffering and their coupons are not coming and they don't have anywhere to go, the only place that they run to is their provident fund and by extension their personal pension schemes. Because as you are aware, pension funds are exempted. It is quite recently that some conversations have started coming. But you see, there's a grandfather in the house who can talk for members, so we don't need to go and pick it at the Ministry of what? Finance.
So that was Assistant Manager of Standards and Compliance at the NPRA, Manuel Abrokwa, who spoke at the launch of a new Tier 3 pension product by Metropolitan Pensions Trust Fund Limited, known as the Smart Safe Personal Pensions Plan, speaking at that event there. Now, let's move on to some other stories we have for you. Banks in the coming months take steps to review their investment and lending decisions. The move has been influenced by the negative impact of the debt exchange program, which has resulted in some banks posting record losses for the year 2022. Well, this may also affect investments in government bonds. Chief Executive of the Ghana Association of Banks, John Ewa, disclosed this on PM Express Business Edition.
Let's look at the system in the right way. When you say banks are going to do proper lending, banks are not going to relax lending covenants. No. We have shareholders' interest to protect, depositors' funds to protect, and also to demonstrate to our stakeholders, correspondent banks, the regulators, that of course we will operate, we will be lending, but we'll be careful in lending. Being careful in lending does not mean that if there's a good deal or a good transaction on the table, a bank will not do it. Banks are actively in the market looking for deals. So you tell me a businessman who has a very juicy, nice a transaction that a bank is saying no, because banks have liquidity. I can tell you there is adequate liquidity in the system, and that liquidity is looking for homes. And those homes are bankable projects that banks are looking for.
And those projects will not go into government bonds going forward?
Of course, the avenue for the government bonds will not be with us for some time.
But I'm still trying to get this from you, that so going forward, forget about my expression of real banking. Are things going to change in terms of the investment decisions that will guide escrow, and then also investment decisions when it comes to lending, that we are now going to see more prudent lending? As long as a Geography has a good project, a bankable project, you've met all the tick box, we'll be doing more lending to businesses.
I'm sure, given what we have gone through in recent months, of course, the boardrooms of banks will be taking a second look at their asset allocations. That is not to say that there's going to be prescription from anybody on how banks are supposed to allocate their assets.
Responding to this, the Ghana National Chamber of Commerce and Industry is warning any move by banks to review their investments and lending decisions could further worsen the plight of businesses. According to the chamber, already businesses are reeling under the effects of harsh economic climate, thereby threatening their sustainability. Therefore, any move by the banks will spell doom for the economy. Mark Bedu Abuaje is the Chief Executive of the Ghana National Chamber of Commerce and Industry and has been speaking to us.
Profit definitely is going to be affected. Now, for the banks themselves, they are not making their profits, and I go back to the impact of these three new taxes. Now you are imposing additional taxes on these banks in spite of the difficulties they are going through. So definitely we are saying that we don't want businesses to expand. And for me, if you are not careful, the performance of the economy in 2023 will be worse than what we experienced in 2022. Our GDP performance in 2022 was not good. If you look at the industry sector, it was the worst performing among the sectors. Drill down to the manufacturing sector, which is my major concern, we realize that it also contracted by 2.5%, which means a number of factors, including lack of funding, is also impeding their activities. So basically a survival strategy to ensure that you wait when things improve.
I remind that you're still watching Business Live with me, Pious Kojo Baka. There'll be more after this break. Hello, welcome back. Now, the Fisheries Ministry has pledged to cut the importation of fish into the country. According to its Deputy Minister, Moses Enim, it will adequately support local fish farmers to boost fish production. He was speaking at a dinner and awards night organized by the Chamber of Aquaculture Ghana.
Decided to rear catfish, not purposely for commercial reason, but I wanted to learn through your difficulties, so that if somebody comes along to tell me the feed cost is 70% of the total production cost. I should believe it. And I can tell you for a fact that even that 70% might have been a decade position. So what do we do then? It's up to us to work together. The academia, the researchers, we have to come together and solve the bottlenecks and remove the hurdles on the way and make sure that the cost of production come down. And let me reiterate my last point, that where we are today, with all the challenges of post-COVID, the countries that will survive are those that will increase their import substitution. And we should reduce importation of fish. And I still stand by the word that if you want to import fish, go look for your own forest to import. We cannot generate forests among ourselves and then we give you dollars, change our cedis into dollars, and you go and import. It will mean that we need to increase production, aquaculture, and I know we will do that.
And it is important that we stay a while longer on this because Joy Business's Emma Davis was crowned the Aquaculture Journalist of the Year 2022, and thankfully she joins us in studio. Grateful, Emma, you could join me, and congratulations to you as well.
Thank you.
What does this award mean to you?
It kind of feels like your efforts are being seen and you are being acknowledged for things you do.
All right, so tell me which particular story you did, for which reason you earned this award.
Okay, so I highlighted some of the challenges in the sector. So I went to Sogakope,
Okay.
yeah, where I interviewed a farmer where he talked about the fact that he had scaled down his production from like a huge number to just a few tons. And then in that sector, they had reduced from about 900 fish farmers to about 100. And that's quite significant. Yeah.
I see. So what next for Emma Davis?
Just like on food chain, every time we do, I mean, it's about agriculture in a whole. So aquaculture is also part of agriculture. Yes, the ministries are separate, but it's still the same field. And we hope to do more and highlight the challenges in the sector.
We are indeed grateful, Emma Davis, and congratulations once to you once again. And we'll certainly keep an eye on that and keep viewers updated. Now, watch the story. And clam is a type of shellfish used for various delicacies across the globe. In Ghana, it is popularly known as adode. In today's episode of Food Chain, Joy Business's Emma Davis explores the life stages of a clam in Ghana, from harvesting to the plate.
It's a type of shellfish that is high in nutritional density. In Ghana, it is popularly known as adode. It is also a source of livelihood for people along the Volta region and the Greater Accra region. 19-year-old William Stibiding does this for a living.
This is the most common job among young guys here in Ada. We harvest them in the lake and move the clams to a water body with less salt and leave them for about a year for them to grow.
So you can't sell it like this?
Under normal circumstances, I wouldn't sell the clams this size.
But why must you change the position?
We changed the location also because other people keep their stock here. It is not exclusive to us. This is my main source of livelihood since I don't have formal education. If I am not on the lake, I run an Okada business.
So how do you take care of it?
We sprinkle water on them from time to time to keep them alive.
What are some of the hazards of this job?
So quiet so show so ye one soon.
With this job, one needs to be a good swimmer. The only challenge with this job is the occurrence of death of some inexperienced people. I want to save and start another business. It could be focusing on my Okada business or undertaking an apprenticeship.
After the clams are harvested, it definitely goes through a process.
First, you light your fire. Place the cooking utensil on the fire. Put the clam in it and allow the vapor to cause it to open. Clam is seasonal, so I sell palm wine when I'm not doing this. We buy directly from the boys who harvest the clam. They start pricing from 30 cedis.
Well, you can watch the full episode tomorrow on Joy News channel at 6 p.m. Make a date and watch. Grateful serving you. I am Pious Kojo Baka. You can always get business stories when you log on to myjoyonline.com/business. Always a pleasure serving you. Do have a lovely weekend.